Hello. We will be talking about qualia today. Now, what is qualia? I really liked the thing that Daniel Dennett said. He says, look at a glass of milk at sunset, the way it looks to you, the particular personal, subjective, visual quality of the glass of milk is the qual of your visual experience at that moment. The way the milk tastes to you, then, is another gustatory qual, and how it sounds to you as you swallow is an auditory qual. The various properties of conscious experience are prime examples of qualia. Uh, Nothing, it seems, could you know more intimately than your own qualia. Let the entire universe be some vast illusion, some mere figment of Descartes' evil demon, and yet what the figment is made of, for you, will be the qualia of your hallucinatory experiences. Descartes claimed to doubt everything that could be doubted, but he never doubted that his conscious experiences had qualia, the properties by which he knew or apprehended them. Now, what does that really mean? And is that what everyone is saying? Um, no, that is not what everyone is saying. Everyone seems to have a very different definition of what qualia is. But summed up, most people seem to agree that the ness of something, so the redness, the greenness, the painfulness, is a good enough description of qualia. But that's kind of where the problem lies. The problem is that so many people use this word, beginning with philosophers and most recently neuroscientists, and no one seems to agree on what qualia is or if it's even possible for science to explain qualia. Now, let's do a quick history lesson. Uh, as far as theories of the mind go, it began with the mind and the body. People have always wondered where the mind existed. Was it in the heart, the brain? Descartes was one of the first interesting people that had something to say about that. He asked a lot of questions and wondered if he could trust any of his senses. He said no, and he was the founder of dualism, where the mind and the body were considered separate things. Then we have the identity theorists who, when they experience redness, they say that redness is equal to the thing that is going on in the brain. Um, then we, oops, oh dear. Then we have the functionalists, who, interestingly enough, this seems very confusing that the character of quality is the function of the system. So, where it is in the causal relationship, seems like not a very good definition, but they actually were the ones to contribute to the functional model of the brain that we have today. And then we have reductionists and eliminativists. Most scientists are reductionists now, but eliminativists have something interesting to say that we shouldn't even be talking about the mind at all. That the mind and the body are exactly the same thing, so we need to stop talking about it as two separate things. Now everyone's had, again, different definitions and points of what makes up qualia. Ramachandran says 3 things in the book, but has since updated to 4 things. And he gives 4 points as to define qualia: that it's irrevocable, that there's a choice element, that short-term memory needs to exist, and that qualia and attention are closely linked. Francis Crick also had something interesting to say. He said that qualia presented some easy and hard questions for science. Um, easy ones that we're working on currently. How can a human subject discriminate sensory stimuli and react to them? That's something that visual attention studies have been interested in. But will we ever be able to answer questions like what leads to a particular conscious experience, or why are some aspects of subjective experience impossible to convey to other people? We don't know. Qualia has extensive implications for research. It is an aspect of the blind spot. It has implications that we'll talk about briefly in blind sight. And then anything such as deciding who counts as conscious, what is consciousness, and what creates it, and any disorders with distortion of self or perception all have this, question of qualia that needs to be addressed. Where is qualia experienced? Now, as something that we describe often, the redness of red, we would think it would be in the frontal cortex, but no, ironically, where we find qualia most often is in the temporal lobe, and then in places like the cingulate gyrus. There's a very interesting blind sight case study. There was the participant GY who had suffered damage during childhood. So he had an affected hemifield and an unaffected hemifield. He was considered an expert subject, so they did a qualitative study with him and asked him a lot of questions about his experience. They tested light in both fields of vision, motion, etc., and asked him these questions about his experience. He reported a difference in qualia between his affected and unaffected fields, so even though he was able to have other parts of his brain working as far as orientation and other things, he did not experience this qualia in his affected hemifield. And I just want to say qualia is very, very interesting. It has extreme, we haven't even started investigating, and the implications will continue. And I look forward to seeing where it goes. Thank you.